Hello everyone, guys. We've got some breaking news from Ukraine. Well, it's breaking news as of 23 minutes ago. We're going to cover that today, and we're going to give a wider angle, a wider analysis on what the situation is in Ukraine. Guys, literally both sides look like that. Both sides, the Ukrainians and the Russians, look like they're pushing towards their objectives in respective countries. Now, this thing seems like it's going absolutely wild. It's getting out of control. But, guys, this is the reality of modern warfare. You need to seize these targets. You need to take control of your assets, and you need to push forwards and take ground. That is warfare, guys. All right. That's not controversial. That's not controversial opinion. That's what's happening. So what's been happening on the ground? What's the breaking news? Russia claims capture of another key town en route to Pokrovsk. So Russian forces have taken control of the town of Novodorivka in the Donetsk region, state media reports citing the defense ministry. This comes as increasing military pressure on the area, with Russian forces setting their sights on the Pokrovsk region, which lies 15 kilometers northwest of Novorivka, as the crow flies. So, guys, they're only 15 kilometers now from this location. Guys, they're literally, they are well within artillery range now of this town. They're they're really close. So the Russians are pushing closer towards this town. Why is this important? Guys, remember what we've been saying for months. In fact, let me try and find it. Right back when Macron said he would send troops. It's a European EU mission training. Right back when, there it is, guys. So right back when Macron said he would send troops into Ukraine. Remember, this is called a tactical tiptoe. It's when one world leader, one authority, he'll step forwards, he'll say something, and then he'll walk it back a little bit. But then the precedent's set, the conversation started. People are talking about it. All eyes will look to that leader, then that leader will step back, then another leader will step forwards and push a little bit further forwards. So what do we know? What's been previously said? And this is why it's so important to the Pokrovsk region. So Macron came out and he said he would send put French troops on the ground under two conditions. One, the Russians make significant gains in the east. Two, if Zelensky asks for it. Well, the EU mission has already been requested, and then this kind of got backtracked a little bit, and then Macron went out and he tried to find some allies within the European Union. And guys, this feeds perfectly into these diversions that were happening. People are not talking about NATO troops going into Ukraine now. They're talking about the EU troops going into Ukraine now. Guys, I think this thing has already been planned. It's already been done. And I think my speculation, my analysis, my opinion is this is a done deal. We're just waiting for ticks in boxes. We're waiting for I's to be dotted and T's to be crossed. So when is this from? The EU military. All right, so that's what it's called, guys. So they've got an operational name for this thing. It's called the European Union Military Assistance Mission of Ukraine. I'll put the links in the description, or it's called the EU MAM. The EU MAM provides training to the Ukrainian Armed Forces personnel at basic, advanced, and specialist levels on medical assistance, CBRN, demining, logistics, and communications, maintenance and repair, among others. Now, where is it? There, medical. Now, one of the things, when you're talking about medical and you're talking about tactical medicine, there's an argument there's no such thing as tactical medicine. There's just medicine, right? But for this video, there will be. So for those of you who say, oh, no, there's no such thing as tactical medicine, I get that argument, guys, but I'm not going there. For this video, we're going to go through the TCCC guidelines. So tactical medicine. First of all, you have to do, there's certain procedures that you have to do if you're doing tactical medicine. So by tactical medicine, we mean combat medics, medical assistance on the front line. So if you're in a firefight, you need to win that firefight before you can deal with your casualties. That's just the reality, guys, right? Every soldier knows this. Everybody on the front line understands that if you're hit, if something happens to you and you're a casualty and the rest of your unit haven't won the firefight, and they start dealing with you as a casualty, they're just going to take more casualties, and it's going to take longer for you to get the medical assistance that you need. I get it. There's lulls in battles. There's natural break points, choke points, and you can withdraw, potentially if the fight's not being won as significantly as you would think it would be. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because of part of tactical medical is the tactical bit. Now, you can have a tactical medical course and you can do, I don't know, say 3 weeks on the tactics, where you're learning everything about tactics to learn how to do that fire suppression, win the firefight, the attack, the approach, and the fight through. So you can learn all this stuff, and then you learn your medical stuff, because they do come hand in hand. So when I see things and it says we're just going to learn medical stuff, yeah, okay, depends what depends what the syllabus is. So that's the EU mission into the Ukraine. Guys, this has already been done. They've got an operational name for it. They're talking, I'll put the links in the description. There's a mission mandate. It's there. They're talking about it. And one of the things they say is that they've already been assisted. This has already been requested by the Ukrainians. So the Ukrainians have already put in a request for EU trainers to come into Ukraine, for the EU then to have boots on the ground in Ukraine. Now, guys, looking back, this kind of sounds like one of the things that Macron was talking about, doesn't it? Remember, requests from Ukraine. And then we talk about this significant advances in the East. Guys, I'm telling you now, once Pokrovsk is taken, I think they're going to activate this mission and they're going to push this mission into Ukraine, and I think this is going to be the straw that breaks the donkey's back. That's what we say. So, what do we know about this town or this region? I'll show you the map if I can. And again, guys, if you've been following this channel, I've been keeping you guys up to date on this, on the Russian progress in this region. So they're talking about this town here, guys, Novohorodivka. I think that's how you pronounce it. Novohorodivka. This town here, the Russians are claiming they've got, they've taken control of it. And that's only 15 kilometers now from the front line. But guys, look what happened the other day. So this news that we're getting, this is out of, this is from confirmed media. This map I get here, I know the people who put this map together, and they're really good at putting this map together. So this map is usually ahead of what the mainstream says. So the reality is, if this was 15 kilometers, this is obviously closer, and we are not far now from taking this key town of Pokrovsk. Guys, it's key because of the north and south rail routes that come into it, and also these two roads that come out of it, main supply routes that go north and south. So if you control this town, you can control these two roads, and the Ukrainians don't have that rail support to get in there. So, guys, that's why this is such a huge strategic, strategic gambit for the Russians. Now, on the Ukrainian side of it, guys, I'm calling it now. I mentioned it yesterday, and I spoke a little bit about it yesterday. I think guys, and this is absolutely insane, I think the Ukrainians are going for the nuclear power plant in Kursk. I think their mission will be to capture it if they can, destroy it if they can't capture it. So that's what I think they're doing in that region. Again, it makes no sense not to do these things. When you're talking about, capturing people's, what do they want? Realistically, guys, what's more strategically important than a power station? You could argue there's nothing. Okay, your military, your missile silos. Okay, do they need electricity? Yes, right. Okay. Everything needs electricity, guys. Name me one thing that doesn't need electricity, that's of any significance in a strategic manner. Everything needs electricity. So if the Ukrainians can take control of the nuclear power plant in Kursk, let me see what I've got here, guys. If the Ukrainians can take control of that nuclear power plant in Kursk, it's going to be, guys, it's going to be an absolutely catastrophic blow for the Russians. You know, it will be humiliating. It will be, you know, the Russian public will lose faith in, you know, in the government, and then you could start to see some civil unrest in Russia. You know, all these things feed into this narrative. Now, on the, you know, on the second front, if they can't capture it, if they get to a situation where they're like, right, guys, you know, we've got no chance of capturing this, could the Ukrainians then attack that, you know, attack that power plant? Who knows? But what I do know, and what is in 100% certainty, is the Russians are attacking the. Oh, hang on, something just come out. The Russians are attacking the Ukrainian power grid. So, you know, the Russians kind of put the power grid as fair game. And let's not forget, that region of the world gets ridiculously cold in winter, and we're heading towards those winter months. So while the Russians are trying to freeze out the Ukrainians, from what I'm seeing, the Ukrainians are now going for the Russian power grid, and they're going to try and, you know, freeze out the Russians. Guys, this has just come up literally from like 2 minutes ago, an update. Let me share this with you. Where are we? I'll share it with you and give analysis. I've not read it, because I do things in real time, guys. I don't give you scripted stuff. No, I give you straight real-time analysis. Anyway, Russia invaded Ukraine more than 30 months ago. In that time, both. So the question is, who is winning the war? And again, you know, I find this an obscene question when we talk about winning. You know, and it's like people think this is a game of football or a game. You know, people are losing their lives. You know, women and children are dying. Young men going away to fight for their countries are never going to come back. Young men are going away to fight for patriotism, to fight for an image of, you know, to fight for an idea of an image that they feel they have an affinity with. And a lot of them are not going to come back. And guys, you know, controversial if you wish, I'm talking about both sides now. I'm talking about on the Russian side, on the Ukrainian side. I want all killing to stop because it's absolutely pointless. All right. That said, the Russians did go into Ukraine in the first instance. Russia invaded Ukraine more than 30 months ago. In that time, both Russia and Ukraine have made considerable advances. I could argue the Ukrainians haven't made considerable advances, only to lose territory again. Okay, right, in vicious fighting. Today, Capisa asks, who is winning between Russia and Ukraine? Again, I don't like that. Military analysis, Sean Bell says, and again, you know, I'm a bit with Sean Bell. When Russia initiated its brutal invasion of Ukraine, President Vladimir Putin appeared to expect Ukraine to capitulate within days. Yeah. So the problem there, guys, is with corruption. Russia had been paying people in Ukraine. He'd been paying inside operators, spies, whatever, agent provocateurs, tatushkas, whatever you want to call it, people inside to then bribe officials, bribe people, and try and find the opinion. Obviously, when you're paying somebody, you know, so Putin's paying these people, they're taking the money and thinking, nice one, you're never going to invade. We're just going to keep pretending to work, which is what you do when you're a socialist country. You know, you pretend to work. So then when Putin's saying, right, how far away are they? And all these people are taking money, they're saying, yeah, they'll crumble within a day. And then Putin pushes his tanks in. Obviously, these guys have not been doing as they're told. I suspect heads would roll for that. However, stoical Ukrainian resistance combined with growing Western military support forced Russia to modify its war aims. So, guys, that's a little bit light. So, right, guys, whatever anybody says, I don't care who they are. I don't care what analysis they're giving you. Two things that stopped the Russian advance initially. Two things, nothing more, nothing less, though nothing else comes into this equation. One, the Starlink communication system that was given by, well, Elon Musk or US military. And secondly, is it the NLAW? The NLAW? Yeah, the NLAW anti-tank weapon. Now, the NLAW was used in greater, than the Javelin. So there's a Javelin system and then there's the NLAW. The Javelin system is good for taking out tanks at distance. The problem is when you're fighting in built-up area, you don't have that distance that distance advantage. Whereas the NLAW, it can be, you can get really up you can get up close and personal. And you know, I've heard, you know, first-hand accounts of people shouting "God save the Queen" when they find that M-law, which is, you know, it's pretty cool. And also they've got that M-law on you know, on a vodka bottle. Over 900 days into the war, it's very difficult to use the terms like winning. Yeah, it is. Given the price both sides are paying in this grinding war of attrition. Guys, if this is going to be a grinding war of attrition, the Russians are going to win. We don't, you know, the West don't have the manufacturing capacity to keep up with Russia. They don't, we don't, it's the reality. You know, that's why as we push closer and closer, things become more and more dangerous because both sides know this. However, we can provide an objective assessment, right, guys? How long is this? Right, guys, I'm not going to read this all. I'll read you this. We'll go through this paragraph and then we'll call it a day. I want to keep these videos round about what we're on, round about 10-15 minutes, which we're already over now. We're already over now, guys. We've started, so we will go on, I guess. So, however, we can provide an objective assessment of progress to date. Although we can only speculate about Putin's specific objective, I'll tell you now, guys, he wants Kiev. Nothing else, nothing more. He wants to take Kiev. Once he's taken Kiev, he would then look at potentially a buffer zone into Poland. Although we can only speculate, he consistently suggests that the aim of a special military operation is securing Crimea, Donbass, and a land bridge. No, he wants Kiev. Russian, guys, you've got to understand Russian history. You know, to understand why he wants Kiev. Have secured the majority of this territory over the course of the war and have advanced further into Ukraine's territory. While Ukraine has conducted audacious incursions into Russian territory, the first time since 1941, and has also increased the intensity of drone and missile strikes deep into Russia. So this argument, guys, you know what we're saying about can we use Western weapons to strike into Russia? You know, the Ukrainians are already using drones with, you know, which are just slow missiles, essentially. You know, so I don't really see this argument. Anyway, such attacks look unlikely to divert Russian forces from their main effort in the Donbass region. Yeah, you know, and they're right. So this is the region the Ukrainians have taken, I'm assuming. Yeah, I think. Yeah, sorry. Assessed Ukrainian gains. Again, you know, what we can say is these things may be inflated. They may not. We don't know. You know, we don't know the situation on the ground. For Russian forces making a grinding progress towards securing the remaining areas of the Donbass not yet occupied, and it looks likely this will remain Russia's priority, remaining blah, 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 blah. Yeah, so Pokrovs, guys. This is all about Pokrovs. Right now, for the Russians, it's all about Pokrovs, and the Ukrainians, it's all about that nuclear power plant in the Kursk region. Remember, as both countries push closer towards their objective, that's when things become more dangerous. Remember what Putin's been saying about the nuclear weapons. You know, I don't know what these red lines are going to be. I don't know what, you know, what Putin is actually thinking in his head. Nobody does, and I don't even think he does. But what we do know is both sides are in this for the long haul. The longer this war goes on, the more likely the Russians will succeed. Both sides know this. You know, the West cannot fight. Guys, I don't care what anybody says. The West cannot take Russia on in a long, protracted war. We just can't do it. We've got too much red tape. We've got too much human rights. Casualty, what's the word I'm looking for? Our casualty appetite is nowhere near what the Russians is. You know, the Russians will accept these huge casualty rates, whereas we wouldn't in the West. That said, our military is a lot better. So if this was going to be a war and the West was to be involved, this would have to be a quick war. It'd have to be over quick, and you know, we would have to push all the way up to Moscow, take St. Petersburg, and then balkanize Russia. That's the only way I see this win. I don't like using the word win. That's the only way I see a Ukrainian win, and that's the only way I see I guess it's NATO, isn't it? NATO, EU, whatever brackets you want to put. into that scenario, whether it's the EU army, whether it's France and, you know, a coalition of the willing, whether it's this what they call him, the Eastern Pact, where you've got the Poland, Finland, and the Baltic nations, you know, having this Eastern Wall. So whoever this is, whatever this is, you know, whatever bracket you put on this, if those guys were, you know, want to claim a victory, I feel the only way they can claim a victory is to take Moscow, take St. Petersburg, overthrow the Russians, and balkanize the whole of the former Soviet Union, what we now call Russia. Guys, and that's the reality, and everybody knows this, but nobody's saying it. Nobody's telling you this. They're all saying these little, you know, oh, we want to do this, oh, we want to do this. Guys, that's, you know, that is where we're going. There's no other way that this can end for the Ukrainians positively. And for the Russians, there's no other way that this can end unless they've taken Kiev and most of Ukraine, because that river Dnipro, I'm not going to show it you guys, but the Dnipro basically bisects Ukraine in half. It's a natural choke point. It's a natural stop point. That's where you would naturally stop. Now, whether he's going to push forwards into Poland and say, right, you know what, we're going to have Poland as a buffer zone, that's another story. That's another argument. I can argue yes, and I do personally think he would. But equally, you know, I see the argument for him just stopping in, you know, at the Dnipro. And why wouldn't he? Right now, Putin knows that the West, all the Western munitions factories are at full capacity. He knows that all the Western, you know, he knows the West is weak with civil unrest in their countries. Why wouldn't Putin push now while he can? Because if he waits another 5 years, if he waits another 10 years, then the West may have gathered more strength and they may be able to push back even further. Guys, whichever way you look at it, this conflict's not going anywhere. We have got nuclear escalations every day. You've got the Ukrainians pushing towards a nuclear power plant, and you've got the Russians pushing towards Pokrovsk. I think Pokrovsk is going to be the linchpin where the EU say, look, you know, the situation's untenable anymore. We need to put our troops on the ground. We need to put boots on the ground in this training mission. Anyway, guys, that's me for today. I've gone on for 22 minutes, which is a little bit longer than I wanted to. But anyway, guys, I'm going to map to grid, and I'll get you guys another video later.